Welcome to TechCentric Planet, where we offer a glimpse to the future of humanity through the lens of technology.
We've sought out innovators and founders who are interested in providing solutions to some of our most fundamental human-centric problems with a view to help our planet. I'm
Mary Beth Hosking, and my co-host, the voracious Professor Martin Parr.
And this episode, we have Markko Waas, who is going to talk to us about his company, Claims Carbon, and his innovation, helping in the insurance industry to transition to net zero. Welcome, Markko.
Thank you very much, Martin and Maribeth. I'm really looking forward to these discussions.
Perfect. So, tell us about your innovation and how it will help society and the planet.
Yes, the insurance industry is a very big part of the economy. And if you look at all the revenues that the insurer has or have, maybe 3/4 of that, 75%, they use to fix and repair cars, rebuild houses, fixing water leakages, restoring land, etc. So a lot of revenues goes to actually fixing things for your clients. And meaning when you fix and repair things for your clients and customers, of course, you use energy, and of course there's a carbon footprint. It is very important for the insurance to think about actually how they spend for example, in the supply chain. And it's also important how they actually design the product for the future, because if you're able to much more work with recycled parts, of course you will decrease the energy consumption because that part has already been manufactured. And if you look at globally, it's a huge industry, as I said before. I mean, roughly, the revenues in the insurance industry is close to $2 trillion. I mean, it's a giant industry. And out of that, 75% they spend on claims. So it's more than $1 trillion that they put into activity in economies in all parts of the world. And of course, as a big player, you have a huge potential to change your behaviors in the supply chain, in how you design your products, and be able to actually decrease the energy consumption, meaning you will decrease your carbon footprint in the future, meaning the global warming will start to stop.
My next question, and I kind of think I know the answer to this question already, Markko, because we were just, before we started recording the podcast, we were talking about just the things that are happening globally. So with the wildfires in the States, etc., and all these things that are happening. And I kind of know the answer to this question, but why did you decide to develop this solution? Why did you decide to work with the insurance companies?
First, me and my co-founder Espen Hustad, we were listening, I think it was 4 years ago now, it was Jim Carrey and the CEO of Swiss Re discussing in the Davos, exactly this time, 4 years ago, how the insurance industry plays an important role in the climate space. And they were starting to discuss this, this huge opportunity and the impact that the insurers has when they fix claims and what underwriting risks they actually take on their balance sheet. And me and Espen saw that no one was actually looking into this problem analytically. And we are a very experienced insurance team, so we saw potential. Here was a blue ocean. So that's how the idea came up. This is a blue ocean. We can help the insurers in the journey towards net zero. And if we succeed, we can really make a huge impact globally, decreasing CO2 emissions. So that was the starting point. That actually was exactly 4 years ago these topics were discussed in Davos.
I love that. I love that, getting us to net zero, reducing our carbon footprint, doing all of those things. And we were talking about, and the question you asked me, Markko, which our listeners will sort of wouldn't have heard, but was that, I'm in Australia, I'm in a fire zone, and you said, can you still get insurance? And I don't think people are really thinking about that. Like the average Joe citizen isn't thinking about that impact of climate change, when we all need to be thinking about that. We all need to be doing our part. And your ability to be able to help the insurance companies report on this and understand what this means, it means that we still can potentially get insurance, right? Because they're going to have that right data and it's going to be tangible for them.
Correct. And this is it's a twofold street. I mean, if you talk about the climate risks, you have one, the physical climate risk, what would mean flooding, fires, etc. And of course, as you said, Maribeth, it's very important to work with prevention, resilience, as you explained in Australia. Maybe you need to cut some trees, maybe you need to have sprinkles. So it's very important that customers or consumers or ordinary citizens do that. I mean, it will be extremely important in the future, because will be a much bigger problem, not only the problem for the insurers. So that's a very important. And then we have this hand in hand goes this with transition to net zero, because if all the people on the world continue to consume and we continue to warm up the globe, of course, this physical climate risk will increase. So you need to work with the both dimensions, the physical climate risks and also the transition to net zero. I mean, helping insurers with data, helping them with calculating in a systematic way, and all the time improving the activities, how they can design the products for the future, and which levers to work on. For example, how can you increase repair ratios when you fix your cars? Can you repair with recycled parts? If you have a total loss of your house, maybe in California right now, can you build it up in much more eco-friendly way, meaning that you actually use much more material that can actually incorporate carbon? Or already a lot of startups or even big industry are now producing fossil-free concrete. So there are many ways of designing, for example, houses for the future that will be less carbon intensive. And you need data and insight and help the insurers with this. And it's here where claims carbon plays a very important role.
Yeah, absolutely. It does, doesn't it? Because I've had some experience of the construction industry in the UK. And it's amazing how, particularly on the smaller scale, when you get to sort of small scale office development, small scale residential development, the builders just reach for the cheapest possible. Whatever they've always done, whatever they did in the past, it might have been donkeys years ago, but they go for whatever they know, and they think it's the cheapest possible always. And so there's a huge opportunity to influence there. You talked about that kind of blue ocean that you've got the. You kind of came into this as the sort of the first to market. So that must have been a real challenge. I mean, anybody who's coming into a new area, you've got to establish yourself. You've got to do all the things that you need to do to be known, and then you've got to develop a business. So, what hurdles did you face in developing this? What were you struggling with at the beginning?
I mean, I think your questions almost answer itself. I mean, being a first mover, and if you look at the academics and all the management consulting literature, etc., of course, it's not always too good to be the first mover. There are many examples in many industries. So of course, that is still a challenge, that we are a little bit in the forefront. And I can't hide that of course, that keeps me still awake sometimes during the night. Are we too early? Because, I mean, the biggest hurdle right now as a company is that there is not standards yet how to do these calculations. I mean, we will during 2025 start with the organization and with insurers to actually develop this standard. And of course, being around now almost 4 years, we are being a household name in this area, and that's why they are invited us to these discussions. But of course, it will take time. And in a startup, because of you're always stressed with your finance, so of course this is a balance. I mean, developing standards, that's good, but it takes time. So I mean that's, I think, in many startups, it's not only in the finance service sector. I mean, it's the time frame that I think is a very important thing, and also a big hurdle, and also maybe a big challenge for many startups, because we know this will come, but you don't know exactly when. Of course, what helps us in Europe is, of course, the EU taxonomy and CSRD reporting, because the big companies need to start to report on this. But of course, they will have a 3-year transition period, so it will take a little bit of time before they will have full reports.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know a lot of good activities in UK, because I'm in contact with the UK insurers, and also in Australia, a lot of things are happening, and then good things also happening in Japan. And US, I believe, but that's a different ballpark. You never know what will happen in the US right now.
Yes, we won't be talking about the political landscape
No.
at all on this podcast, because I think
But it's sometimes still you need, but still it's because US being the biggest insurance market globally, so of course. It's very important for me what happens there.
Very insurance heavy, but there's so many naysayers around just climate, the climate crisis, and there's so many fors and against. No, we're not in a climate crisis, but if you're in Japan, I was in Japan just recently, and it was their summer, and it was the hottest summer recorded, and every summer is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And so, yeah, absolutely there's climate change, but you have naysayers. And so I wonder, with your innovation, with what you are looking at, with this concept, this idea, you said it's challenging over the 4 years so far, because it's like, where does the next round of funding come from? What have there been any naysayers, and how did this help push you on when things got really tough, Markko?
In the beginning, it was very easy to have, meet C-level at the insurance companies. They were interested in the topics because this was starting to build up globally as a topic for insurers. But maybe if 75% of the meetings I had at the beginning said, okay, this is interesting. We understand you can do the analytics, but this is not our problem. It's the supply chain, or what the customer, how they fix it, how they repair it. It's not our problem. So that was majority of the meetings I had. That was the outcome. And of course, in every industry, in every country, you have a forerunner. Of course, we were looking for those forerunners who could be our ambassadors for this case. Secondly, at the same time, the EU with the EU taxonomy and CSRD was giving, us a headwind, because now it's clear that what happens in your supply chain, it's your challenge, it's your problem, it's your opportunity. Yes. So we talk about a little bit technical scope 3 emissions, maybe 3.1, or not technical terms. So that gave us a headwind, and of course, because all the major companies in all industry, they are so depending on the supply chain. That's where the things, the buy-in, there where the energy consumption is, and of course there we can make a big difference. So that has helped us a lot. And finally, I would say the third thing or third dimension that has started to give us some tailwind is that the insurance industry itself has now seen a new product evolving in the industry called carbon credit insurances. So that also helps us as a company. Maybe 20 years people were starting to develop cyber risk products. So now you need products to actually insure all the carbon credits you buy as a polluter. And if those projects fail, then you need to have insurance, and the insurance pays new carbon credits. So the industry is evolving around carbon. So hopefully that will also give us a tailwind as a company, and fewer naysayers.
Yes, yes.
So, what would you like to see happen with your innovation now?
Of course, being part of developing the standards and methodology for how to do these calculations. Of course, we would like to be as close as possible to our models. The product itself doesn't matter because you can tilt it and so on. So of course, how we see to solve the problem, how do the calculation. Of course, the dream situation would be the closest possible to the standards that we have developed, and of course, then we will be really in the forefront in this industry and have be in a pole position in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I just ask, the standards that you're working on, is that an EU standard, or how wide is that standard? A worldwide standard, or?
No, it will be a global standard because
Excellent.
we are. Because the organization that is an NGO who has does the standard. All the major insurance companies participate, and they've already done the standards for finance emissions. So it will be applicable globally, yes.
Awesome. That's great. That's great.
It has to be global. It couldn't be. Yeah. You couldn't do something like this and have it federated, like so everyone does their own thing. You have to have the same measures. Otherwise, how do you measure? The success of this? And I was going to say something you were saying there, Markko, that I really wanted to tap into was, there's that idea in Australian rules football, there's like this hand pass thing where you pass the ball to the next person. And I think companies have started to realise I can't just pass the buck. I can't pass this to somebody else. I have to actually take into account my entire supply chain. What is each organisation in my supply chain doing, and how is that impacting my carbon emissions? And we have to be very serious about this now. Gone are the days where you can actually just pass it on and say it's somebody else's problem, because it's all our problem. And I think that's the key. But I'm now going to pose to you our final question. This is the question that has many a guest quaking in their boots as to how to best answer this. We've had some really extraordinary responses, and certainly we expect something wonderful from you, Markko. So let me ask you our final question. If you found yourself awake in front of aliens bent on destroying the planet, how would you convince them not to in 25 words or less?
Okay. It doesn't to be aliens, I think, to answer this question even. You could turn this question around, and your kids, you will go back to the future, and they would ask this question to you, or back. It's the same question. Why did you destroy the world, and etc. So it's a very extremely relevant question, and give you many thoughts. I have 3 kids, and of course, hopefully they will have kids, and maybe they will ask, what did Dad do actually to do something good for the globe, for the world? My answer is following. It's no doubt that Earth is a beautiful place, and utilized in diversity. And if you look at our natural resources, culture, it offers a unique experience for these aliens. They will learn a lot. If you start to destroying this means losing irreplaceable beautiful things. I would say to the aliens, let's explore and learn together instead of destroying it. That's how I see it.
I love that. Extraordinary, beautiful things. Let's stop destroying And you know what,
Yeah.
Markko?
Yeah.
That is why we do TechCentric Planet, because we are looking at these things that are going to help our planet, that are going to help the people on our planet. So let's stop destroying this beautiful, beautiful thing. That is a wonderful response, Markko. Thank you.
There it is. Amazing. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. Beauty is to be preserved, most definitely. Thanks.
And of course, beauty is how to say. It's a word that different people put different dimensions on, but I think it still captures a lot.
Does definitely. That's absolutely perfect.
Bravo.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining us on TechCentric Planet. I would like to thank Markko Waas for joining us and my co-host Mary Beth Hosking.
Join us for our next episode where we tease out another amazing innovation designed to help humanity. And remember, if you've thought of a problem, chances are someone out there is developing a solution for it. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.